I played in a 64-person metronome-only tournament. Here's how I gamed a format that most people would consider completely random. This tournament was played using standard VGC rules, but with the stipulation that all Pokemon could only use the move metronome. What this means is that we had teams of 6, we brought 4 to each battle, and we played in a doubles format. It also means that there was a 20-minute round timer in effect, which is massive for a format like this. Metronome, in case you're not aware, is a move that basically just has the user pick a random move out of every single move coded into the game, and then use it. So yes, your little Makuhita can become a god and slap down its opponent with the judgment of Arceus. In a format like this, a lot of people assume that there's very little optimization to be done and that you might as well just throw your favorite metronome users on a team and call it a day. I disagree. A metronome-centric format's always going to have a ton of variance, but there's a lot of small things you can do to put your finger on the scale and tip it in your favor. Between abilities, held items, EVs, and even Terra types, the minute details add up. So let me show you what I did to break this format. First of all, the main mode of the team, Gengar and Gothitelle. These two have amazing synergy and are, in my opinion, the single best pair in the format. Gengar's ability, Cursed Body, is usually nothing more than a small nuisance, but here it becomes incredibly oppressive. When Gengar is hit by a move, Cursed Body has a 30% chance of activating, disabling the move that Gengar was hit by. In this case, that means Metronome. This effectively forces the opposing Pokemon to either switch out or start using Struggle, dealing significantly more damage to itself than it's doing to me. And that's where Gothitelle comes in. Gothitelle's ability, Shadow Tag, prevents opposing Pokemon from switching out, meaning that if my opponent gets hit by Cursed Body, there's nothing they can do about it. It's a one-way ticket on the struggle bus. Another small way these two complement each other is with their respective items. Gothitelle can hold Leftovers, which is just the best item in this format. While I can't put Leftovers on more than one Pokemon, as a poison type, Gengar can hold Black Sludge, which effectively gives me double the Leftovers, double the fun. Huge hits are very uncommon in metronome battles, so the small regeneration ticks from these items add up and keep the main duo on the field for a long time. As I mentioned, chip damage is the name of the game, and that's where Muk comes in. Another bulky Pokemon, Muk's ability is Poison Touch, which gives it a 30% chance to poison any Pokemon that makes contact with it. Poison damage adds up fast, with it taking away 1/8 of the Pokemon's HP every single turn. If Gengar or Gothitelle are pressured, Muk is a great switch-in, especially if I'm behind and I need that poison damage to turn the tables. Slowking is another option that functions similarly. My Slowking holds the Rocky Helmet item, meaning that every time an opponent makes contact with it, it takes significant recoil damage. Even 1 or 2 hits into the Rocky Helmet can be a massive swing in my favor. And the best part? Slowking's ability Regenerator causes it to heal 33% of its HP upon switching out. So Slowking can come in, take some hits, dish out some Rocky Helmet damage, and then forget all about the damage it took as it runs back to the sidelines. This is the core 4 of the team that really should be coming to most games, but I still had 2 spots on the team to round it out. I decided to give these slots to Hatterene and Iron Hands. Hatterene has another amazing ability called Magic Bounce. This bounces back any status move that targets Hatterene, instead causing them to target the opponent. There are dozens of offensive status moves that could be rolled by Metronome, so this ability is wildly powerful. Hatterene also has an incredibly high special attack stat, so I decided to slap on a choice specs and call it a day. After all, it's probably good to have some offensive pressure. Iron Hands is here just kind of as a big guy who go punch punch. He's got a Choice Band as his held item and has huge damage potential, as long as he rolls high power physical moves. Iron Hands' main role is to bust through teams that are running multiple frail Pokemon, especially if the opponent has a bunch of poison or steel types that would be immune to Muk's whole shtick. Before I finish up by explaining the EVs of the team, let me briefly walk you through the timer mechanics in VGC. When the 20 minutes of the game timer are exhausted, the game will end. Whoever has more Pokemon left wins. That seems simple enough, but if we have the same number of Pokemon alive, it becomes a bit weirder. Then the game goes to whoever has a higher percentage of their team's overall HP remaining. That's why chip damage mitigation is so big in this format, because there's a very real chance that we end some games without either player taking a KO. For that reason, every Pokemon on my team has 252 HP EVs. Every Pokemon also has 252 defense EVs. I opted to prioritize defense over special defense simply because there are more physical moves in the game that the opponent could roll. Iron Hands is the exception here, just because of how wonky his base stats are. My Iron Hands has 180 HP EVs because his base HP is already monstrous, and 252 special defense because his special defense is pretty bad. And also his defense is already pretty good. He's also got 76 attack EVs and a brave nature because if he comes to a game, it's to punch people. Oh right, and every Pokemon has a Steel Terra type because it's quite simply the best defensive type. Except Gengar, whose Terra type is Poison, because otherwise Black Sludge won't work as intended. This tournament was a 6-round Swiss tournament with all records of 4-2 or better advancing to Top Cut. That means that I would have to fight my way through 6 opponents and win 4 of the matches to make the final bracket. Well, in my case, I'd have to win 3, because my first opponent just didn't show up. Makes my life a lot easier. My first real opponent was Tyndall, and Tyndall had a similar core concept with their own Gengar and Gothitelle. They'd also picked Grimmsnarl, a Pokemon that I'd almost decided to use myself. My opponent and I both led off with Gengar and Gothitelle, but the game quickly went off the rails. Tyndall rolled a super effective Assurance on my Gothitelle, followed by a full HP Eruption, while my Gengar did very little and was disabled, forcing a switch out. The second turn, their Gengar rolled a super effective Stab Bitter Malice that just deleted my Gothitelle, while their Gothitelle rolled a super effective Shadow Ball into my Slowking switch-in. The battle normalized and I was even able to pick up a KO on Gothitelle after my Gengar rolled both Roar of Time and a super effective Pollen Puff into it. Gothitelle was long gone for me, but in the endgame my Gengar jaw-locked the Arboliva, keeping it trapped while Slowking used Disable. An absolutely incredible comeback, right up until their full HP Ursaring rolled Water Spout, KOing my Gengar. In a 2v2 endgame, it all came down to the final turn. Ursaring fired off a headlong rush, but not into my Muck, taking a special defense drop as Slowking rolled exactly what I needed to win. Night Daze, a 95% accurate, super effective, powerful dark move that missed. After all of that, heartbreak at the end as I lost 2-2 on timer, and we still had 4 games to go. I went into round 3 choosing to be optimistic. I took a massive deficit early on in my first match, and my Pokemon still almost turned it around. I knew that my Pokemon could do this. I led off once again with Gengar and Gothitelle as my opponent led Slowbro and Florges, a huge advantage for me as neither of their Pokemon could switch out. I terastallized my Gengar to remove some of its weaknesses, and then this happened. Would have been really nice if that— oh my god, get the boost. Oh my god, get the boost. Oh my god, get the boost. Please, come on. Oh, the high roll! Not only a damaging move, not only a special attack, no! They rolled Clear Smog! Of all the moves! Metronome battles are hilarious. On turn 2, we picked up the Cursed Body into the Florges, locking it into Struggle. A couple of turns later, and Slowbro was also disabled. My Gothitelle kept rolling contact moves into the Slowbro though, so while I did technically have the setup that I wanted, Goth was getting dangerously low on HP. With Disable running out on Florges, I opted to switch my Gothitelle out. Slowbro was still forced into one more struggle, knocking itself out and giving me the lead. Slowking picked off Florges with Shadow Force, and just when things looked like they couldn't get any better— I have no idea. Oh my god! We rolled in prison! It's the best move in the game! Fun fact, there was a game in this tournament where somebody rolled in prison on turn 1. Really glad that I wasn't the opponent there. Going into round 4, Gothitelle and Gengar were facing down Annihilape and Slowbro. Annihilape is a super powerful Pokemon that I also considered for my team because of its Defiant ability boosting its attack if I ever lower its stats. Well, Defiant wasn't a problem for long as my Gengar rolled Entrainment, replacing Annihilape's ability with Cursed Body. Whether or not this is good or bad depends entirely on what moves I roll and how often Cursed Body procs. Gothitelle rolled Earthquake to deal big damage to my own Gengar, and then got hit by a Draco Meteor as well. Not exactly how I envisioned this one starting. After forcing Annihilape out, Gengar fired back with a Focus Blast into Arboliva for 60%. Arboliva's gimmick is that it has a Citrus Berry and the Harvest ability, giving it a 50% chance to recover its berry every single turn. And it procced immediately. Ultimately, this game was decided by this Arboliva just going insane. It rolled Shell Sidearm for 120 damage into my Hatterini. Remember when I said that big damage hits are very uncommon in Metronome battles? Apparently Arboliva missed the memo. The Harvest tech was crazy too. Over the course of the battle, I did well over 100% to this Arboliva, but because it kept getting more and more berries, I never even got it into red HP. My Gothitelle finally went down to a Lava Plume from Dragonite, and a Sandsear Storm picked off Hatterini for a second loss. Back against the wall. This wasn't how this tournament was supposed to go. I put so much effort into gaming the system. My strategy was perfect. I came here to win, to outsmart luck, and I knew that my Pokemon had it in them. It was time to dig deep and to play the games of my life, and bring it all back to take home that win. Gengar, Gothitelle, Muk, Slowking, I believed in all of them. And Hatterini and Iron Hands were also there. Our next opponent led off with Indeedee and Lucario. An interesting combination, most notable for being completely unable to escape the Gengar-Gothitelle duo. Well, Indeedee did find one way out. That's unfortunate. Oh! That's very good for me. That's super good for me. Now, the Gengar is going to take damage here, which otherwise it wouldn't have taken, but it's still a very, very, very good turn for me. The first explosion of the day! Lucario was just not bulky enough to stick around for long and was very quickly chipped down. In the end, Gengar claimed the KO with Superpower. Scream Tail eventually went down to Struggle Recoil, and the game was over. Finally, a game that illustrated how I envisioned the main mode of this team to work. At 3-2, the next match was a win-in against none other than Dewobblefett. Dewobblefett is a super smart player who helped construct the team that Wolfie used in the Metronome Singles Tournament way back when. And unsurprisingly, we had pretty similar teams. Gothitelle, Gengar, Slowking, and Hatterini were all on both sides, but he added in Slowbro for Double Regenerator and Arboliva for Harvest. He also had opted for Terra Ghost on every single Pokemon, allowing whichever Pokemon terastallized to switch out of my Shadow Tag. I expected a mirror Gengar Gothitelle lead, but Leonard went with a Slowking Slowbro lead instead, giving me the advantage of trapping them. I opted to terastallize Gothitelle this game to have a better shot at keeping Shadow Tag alive. I actually rolled Fissure early on, but missed an opportunity to take a commanding lead. A huge moment on the next turn as Leonard Slowking, after using a Calm Mind, fired off a +1 Lava Plume, dealing huge damage to all 3 other Pokemon, but also being afflicted by Cursed Body. My Gothitelle was burned now, negating the leftovers healing. Any damage that I took on it was permanent. With Leonard Slowking locked into Struggle, I switched my own Slowking in, trying to benefit from Rocky Helmet Chip, but I was immediately punished by his Gengar using Spirit Shackle, dealing significant damage and also trapping my Slowking in. Luckily for me, his Slowking did target into my Rocky Helmet twice, taking a ton of extra damage. With my Gothitelle forced out, Leonard was able to switch his wounded Slowking out, and revealed his final Mon, Arboliva, at the same time. The game was still very winnable, but I needed some trades to start going my way. Oh! Fissure! Fissure connects! We roll Fissure again and it connects! Beanie, was that the first one? There was a $50 bounty on being the first OHKO move to connect in this tournament, but unfortunately that was claimed by someone way earlier in the night. Regardless, suddenly I had a 4-3 advantage and time was on my side. If I could avoid losing a Pokemon, I would win on timer. Gengar switching out on his side also meant that my Slowking was no longer trapped, so I was free to regenerate some HP there and bring my Gothitelle back in. While the burn from earlier offset my leftovers, it also added a fair amount of animation time at the end of every turn, getting me one step closer to the timer. As if things couldn't get any worse for Leonard, his hurt Gengar rolled Final Gambit, sacrificing itself to deal medium damage to a Slowking that just switched on out and healed all of it off. With that, there was no way back into the game, and I managed to advance to the top cut bracket. Into the top 32. Most players had a bye through this round since we only had 19 players in top cut, but I was one of the unlucky 6 that had to play what was effectively a play-in match. I also didn't realize this, so my screen says top 16. Oh well, what's a good story without a little extra adversity? I faced off against B. Pinella's team, which featured Gothitelle, Gengar, and Poltegeist for double the Cursed Body. Tinkaton was also on this team, which I found pretty neat. Mirrored Gengar and Gothitelle leads faced each other down once again as the battle got underway. Immediately, my Gengar decided that the mirror wasn't quite to his liking and rolled Circle Throw, forcing the opposing Gothitelle out and bringing Grimmsnarl in, trapping it. As if on cue, Grimmsnarl rolled Pin Missile onto Gengar and immediately became disabled. A huge early lead for me. Before fainting and leaving the field though, Grimmsnarl did steal Gengar's Black Sludge, removing half of my passive regeneration. I considered leaving Gothitelle in to force Grimmsnarl to struggle to death, but realized that I didn't need to. Except I accidentally did anyway, taking pretty sizable recoil from my own struggle. I brought in Hatterene and Iron Hands, who I decided to bring for big damage in the back. The war of attrition went back and forth right up until Tinkaton set Sunny Day up, only to be immediately hit by Iron Hands' Magma Storm. Being a special move, it didn't do a ton, but Magma Storm deals residual damage and also traps the target in, so Tinkaton was suddenly on a very short timer. Iron Hands just kept rolling super powerful moves, but all of them were special, so they didn't really do too much. With our opponent down to 2 Pokemon after Tinkaton fell to Magma Storm, I did also get to experience peak singles with Hatterene bouncing a Stealth Rock back onto the opponent's side of the field with Magic Bounce, so that was kinda neat. Not a lot really happened for most of this game, honestly. The opposing Pokemon just kept buffing themselves defensively. Hatterene did eventually go down to Cursed Body, but honestly, it survived for way more turns than it had any right to on almost no HP. Iron Hands did pop off again and roll a second Magma Storm, this time really clinching the match. Next up was our toughest opponent yet, Michael der Beste, which translates to Michael the Best. And he was the best. He went 6-0 in Swiss with a really cool strategy. Michael led off with Booster Energy Iron Hands and Choice Band Florges. The way this works is that the Iron Hands consumes its Booster Energy, gaining a boost to its attack. Then, because it's not holding an item anymore, Florges' Symbiosis ability activates, passing its Choice Band to the Iron Hands, giving it another boost. Combined, these two items double Iron Hands' already insane attack stat. Florges immediately rolled Beat Up into Gengar, giving it 4 separate chances to activate Cursed Body, not that it took more than one. Gengar did take solid damage on turn 1, so I opted to bring in Slowking to replace it, hoping that Regenerator would help to offset any major physical moves that the Iron Hands might roll. Hands rolled super effective Fell Stinger into Slowking, dealing a massive 100 damage right off the bat. Slowking cycled out for Muck as I hoped for a Poison Touch activation, but it wasn't even necessary as Gothitelle rolled the incredible Poison Gas, putting a very short timer onto the Iron Hands. Florges quickly fainted to Struggle Recoil, while Iron Hands tried to make the most of its time on the field, firing off another massive 100 damage Body Slam into a Slowking switch-in. Physical moves are what this Iron Hands was built for, but the recoil damage from the Rocky Helmet was adding up quickly on top of the poison. In a very funny moment of irony, the almost dead Iron Hands decided to use Victory Dance. Before finally fainting though, the now +1 Booster Energy Choice Band Iron Hands rolled Heat Crash into my Gothitelle, which was probably only kept alive by a lucky +1 defense boost from earlier on in the game. As if things weren't bad enough for Michael, my Gengar set up Psychic Terrain just in time for Gothitelle to use a Psychic-type Revelation Dance into the newly switched-in Annihilate for massive damage. With the game basically already locked, Michael's Dragonite decided to go out on its own terms and used Perish Song. Advancing into the top 8, I'd already secured some prize money, but now it was time to exact my revenge on Tyndall, who had handed me my first loss in Swiss. I got very unlucky in that game, and it was time to show Tyndall who's boss. Alrighty, the Grim, the Ghost Grim. Do I switch? I'm going to hands here. I think I actually switch and go into hands here, I'm not going to lie. I think we forced the Terra on the Grim here anyway. I'm okay with the Black Sludge steal. We did have that happen in one of our earlier matches. I just don't want the lefty steal. Oh, they actually don't don't Terra. Interesting. No! Oh, it couldn't possibly be worse! I mean, that's an amount of damage. No, it's our lefties! Oh, I forgot! Why do I keep getting hit by Judgment, dude? Okay, that one didn't do that much. We're fine. Oh, are you kidding me, dude? Oh my god. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Judgment into Spatial Rend. Oh my god. I mean, there isn't really much I can do in this kind of a situation. What? What? So what did we learn here today? I think the lesson is that even if you try your best to outgame whatever format it is you're playing, sometimes it all just comes down to some crazy luck. And that's okay, because that's the game that we choose to play. Or maybe the lesson is that I shouldn't have spent several hours trying to optimize a team for a metronome-only tournament. Yeah, that's probably it. This tournament was a really fun experience. Wacky formats are a super fun way to enjoy the game, especially when the circuit can be such serious business. Speaking of serious business though, next week are the North American International Championships, so make sure that you tune into that over on the official Pokemon stream if you're not going to be there yourself. It's the last tournament of Regulation C, so I'm expecting to see some really crazy strategies that people have been sitting on over the last couple of months. And if you're there, come say hi. I always like meeting people. If you like this video, make sure to drop a like. It really does help the channel. And if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you're all having a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night, whatever it is, wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you all next time.